Hey, this is Danny Eny with Firepole Marketing, and you're listening to Stephanie O'Brien's Moved by Purpose podcast.
If you're in a place right now where you're not in relationships or surrounded by relationships that support you, that will help you get to the next level, then do what you need to do. Find help if that's what you need that will help you get out of that.
Are you longing to know what your purpose is? Are you on the wrong career path? Do you feel like there must be more to life? Don't worry, there's hope. It's time to be moved by purpose. Now your host, Stephanie O'Brien.
Welcome to the show, Joel. I am so excited to have you on.
Stephanie, this is going to be so much fun. I don't even know if you remember this, but gosh, back when Pei and I decided to do our show, Relaunch, you were one of our first guests, and gosh, you shared so much of your own journey, and you were willing to be vulnerable in front of our audience on our show. And gosh, your show, Stephanie, is one of our top downloaded shows. So gosh, to be invited back on your show, it has definitely come full circle. Thank you for the opportunity, and congratulations on the success of this show.
Thank you, and congratulations on your skyrocketing podcast numbers. That's awesome. I love getting those updates of how you hit your goals and how successful you were. That's so motivating and inspiring to see. So, so I would love to hear more about what led you to start Relaunch and to get a background of what things or events in your life led you to doing what you do today.
Sure. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And again, thank you for your time. And I want to respect your time, and I want to respect everyone's time in the Moved by Purpose audience, because, you know, there's a lot of podcasts available. There's a lot of things that we could be doing right now. We live in a content-heavy environment, and when people take the time out of their schedule to, you know, listen to a podcast or to hear someone else's point of view, I don't know about you, Stephanie, but I take that very seriously, because there's no shortage of things to do, right?
Right. That is very true.
Indeed. You know, I spent the majority, or at least the lion's share, of the 90s behind the mic doing traditional radio, and also in front of the camera doing television, and as broadcasting kind of ran very deep with me, kind of coursed through my veins, and I left that industry in the late 90s, and I had some corporate false starts and missteps and things of that nature. And when podcasting was just starting to peek over the horizon, I don't even think it actually peaked yet, but it was getting ready to. Gosh, I knew that not only did I need to be in the podcasting industry, but I needed to be a leader in the podcasting industry in spite of fear or hesitation or some self-doubt. I just knew that I had to do it because based on, you know, my earlier experiences. And gosh, we've been having a blast with the Relaunch show, kind of fast forwarding up to today. And we just recently, about a month ago, passed 1 million listens for the show. That's a big number for me. A lot of zeros there. It's pretty exciting. So we're just having a fun time, not only creating that content, but really helping people learn how to get started and move forward with their own relaunch or with their own career or life transition. So however I can be of help and of value to you today, you know me, Stephanie, I'm pretty much an open book. So we can go in whatever direction that would be most beneficial.
Yeah. So you said the word false starts. Could you explain what you mean by that? That's a kind of a newer term. I haven't heard many people say that, so I'd love to get some clarification on what you meant by that and examples of what a false start could be.
Sure. Okay. Very good. I guess as I look back, a lot of the false starts that I personally experienced and kind of stumbled through on my own have been trying to fit a mold that was designed by someone else and not me.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, well, trying to wear a different hat that clearly wasn't designed for me. And I remember early on in my marriage, and my wife, Pei, she's not only my co-host on the Relaunch show, but she's also my wife of 14 years. And I remember one of the first jobs that I had was in corporate finance at Morgan Stanley, Fortune 500 company. And I thought that, you know, that is the job that I was expected to have, and that's the job that people would be proud of, to say that so-and-so works here, or this is what he has done for himself. But that was a false start. And, I had the ability to work through that company and rise up in the ranks and do what was told and required and all that kind of stuff. But after about a year and a half, 2 years, it was absolutely draining, and it actually became painful on the relationship that I have with my wife. So we had to make some decisions. Gosh, what are we going to do moving forward? How are we going to make this thing work? Relationally, we were on solid ground, but professionally and in a direction-seeking way, we're still kind of moving all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And I know that there is someone listening that can totally relate. First of all, I started feeling dissatisfied in my job a year and a half to 2 years. That seems to be around the time where you start sensing that it's not a good fit for you. And there's a lot of emotions involved with that, especially when you talk about the false start, where you're doing what society kind of says is an acceptable thing for you to do. Like you're kind of following that path, and who wouldn't love a job at a Fortune 500 company and and work your way up that path. And when it's not as fulfilling or satisfying as you thought it would be or hoped it would be, there's a lot of confusion and fear going with that, and a lot of emotions. At least that was the case for me, and a lot of people that write in to me are processing through, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of people with that as well. And it's a very confusing time. So the question is, and it's not an easy question to answer on a 30-minute podcast, but what kind of steps would you recommend someone who knows that there's something wrong, but they're not clear yet on what they need to do next to make it better?
Sure. Okay, fantastic. So you're asking about some recommendations, some practical tools?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Pei and I talk a lot on the Relaunch Show about the 3 ingredients that you need to make any relaunch, or to make any transition, or to make any rebirth possible. And if it's okay with you, I'll go over those real quick.
I love that.
Fantastic. One of the first things that we talk about, I don't know about you, Stephanie, but I am a voracious reader, and I just love to read stuff, and I love to read stories of other people who've overcame obstacles and have believed in themselves through thick and through thin, and have just made it happen for themselves. And the first thing that I recommend to people is that you've got to surround yourself with relaunch resources, the best in relaunch resources. And by that, I mean, you've got to read the best books. You've got to start listening to podcasts like this one and others that are out there, maybe Eventual Millionaire or Entrepreneur on Fire. You might want to listen to Relaunch. You want to surround yourself with the best in reading, the best podcasts, and you also want to surround yourself with the best training material. Audio, video, written content. You want to surround yourself with that because you want to learn something that you don't know. The thinking that you have now is not going to take you to where you want to go tomorrow. You've got to surround yourself and deep dive into the resources that will give you not only the potential, but also the opportunity.
Yeah. I love that. Thinking that you have now will not take you to where you want to be tomorrow. I love that quote. And I completely agree. I did the same thing, and I know other people that started taking action on reading, listening, and getting your hands on as much material as you can to help really encourage you and empower you and to equip you really for what's ahead.
I was reading a book not too long ago. It's called Life by the Cup, and Zena Musica is the author of that. And Zena talks about Life by the Cup. She talks about how she was a single mom, had just given birth to a special needs child, was unemployed, and had about $6 in her pocket. And she came home from the hospital, and tubes coming out of her newborn baby now with special needs, and how she not only didn't have any money, but didn't have any food to feed herself, what she needed that nourishment, so then she could naturally feed her child. In Life by the Cup, she talks about that journey and is tremendously inspirational. And not only does she talk about her journey, but she gives practical steps, actionable things that you can do immediately to create that better life for yourself and your family. And that's what I mean by surrounding yourself with resources, surrounding yourself with things that you can relate with that are relevant, that can give you the knowledge and wisdom that you need.
I completely agree. And surrounding yourself with supportive people as well are really important, because there can be people in your life that are crippled and paralyzed by fear. And when they see you stepping out to make changes, they want to kind of pull you down, because I don't know, that's like a comfort for them. And you've got to be really careful. If you're really sensitive to what other people are saying about you, thinking about what you're doing, you can't let that stop you from moving forward. And that was one of the big choices that I had to make, was changing my relationships.
Right. And that's actually the second thing that we talk about. You've got to have relaunch relationships. Okay, the first thing that we talked about was relaunch resources. We covered that in detail. And then relaunch relationships is that second key ingredient. And you've already nailed it. You're a smart woman, Stephanie. You've got to surround yourself and link arms with relationships, people that know you, that like you, that trust you, and that believe in your dream, that believe in you and your dream, and also those people that will allow you to stand on their shoulders so you can see farther and you can see wider. You can see the whole horizon of possibilities. And for any type of transition, personally, spiritually, emotionally, professionally, you've got to have those two ingredients right there. And if you're in a place right now where you're not in relationships or surrounded by relationships that support you, that will help you get to the next level, then do what you need to do. Find help if that's what you need. That will help you get out of that. And, you know, just real quick, personal story, Stephanie, if you don't mind.
Oh, stories are my favorite. Go for it.
You know, I had a near fatal injury that involved a 30-foot fall, bridge, and a train, and also massive blood loss. And I fell into a coma when I was 5 years old. And when I came out of that coma at age 6, you know, my parents were divorced. So I kind of went back and forth between my parents. They were doing the absolute best that they could, without a doubt. But my mom, in her struggle to find her voice, to find her identity, and to move to a new level, she actually invited in to live with her, and unfortunately me from time to time, an abuser that was there from age 6 through age 13, 7 years. And it was an ugly situation. And unfortunately, I was sitting front row in many of those situations. But I tell that story not to talk about the drama, but to talk about that at age 13, she was able to find the courage and the gumption and the balls, if you will, to walk away from a toxic relationship that wasn't serving anybody. And, you know, and if that's your place, or if you know somebody that's where they are, help them get the help and get out of there. And that's actually what happened to my mom. And there's a lot more to the story, but I want to be not dramatic but helpful. So that's why, in a nutshell, it's so important for me to work one-on-one and in group settings with women that are in a transitional period, looking to find their voice, looking to find their greatest potential for contribution and value. Because at one point in time in my life, and I'm in my mid-40s now, you know, I saw a woman that was not in her best place. And as you can imagine, that created a mark in me. Not a scar, but a mark. Maybe a scar too. But, you know, it made it personal to me to never again kind of thing.
Yeah. And it is very tough to make decisions to grab the change or the life that you really want. And this isn't to pass judgment on people at all, but like a lot of us will stay in very toxic, less than what's best for us situations because it's what we know.
Sure.
And I myself was in an abusive relationship that I got out of, and I know how hard that is to break free of that. So I know what it's like to be in very bleak situations and to stay because it's what you know. But it takes a lot of courage to change. And it's so rewarding. It's not as scary. I mean, it's really not as scary. I think for me, I had to hit a point where it's like, okay, I don't want to live the rest of my life in this relationship. I don't want to live the rest of my life in this job. I don't want to live the rest of my life in this debt or whatever it is that you're trying to change. Maybe it's a health goal that you have. And for me, it was the thought of staying the same was scarier than the thought of changing.
And that's when change will happen every single time. And that's just the way people work. You know, it gets messy. It's not a linear thing. But what you just shared is actually when change happens. And here's the good news. Change can happen. Now, it doesn't have to be as dramatic as what my mom went through, I went through, or what you went through. But if there's something in your life that you're ready to transition out of and to relaunch into, because you got to know where you're going, you know, surrounding yourself with the right resources, with the right relationships, you know, that can be in your church, in your community, that can be at your job, that can be within your family. You're going to have to use your own best judgment to figure out where those situations and opportunities are. But when you're able to do that, then you're actually able to participate in the third ingredient of a successful transition, and that is to participate fully in your relaunch routines. And routines. And what I mean by that is the routines that you can do over and over again that will build you up for success. You see, because life is made, Stephanie, by what our routines make of it. You know, our routines will either be damaging or they'll be healthy. They'll either take life from us or give us life. And a question that I'm often asked, or have been before, is, okay, Joel, I get it. Routines. What kind of routines do I need to do to produce the kind of fruit that I want to produce in my life? And it's actually a very good and legitimate question. And it's actually an easy answer. You know what the answer is?
Just keep doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely keep doing it. But the routines that you participate in are the ones that you learn from participating in your relaunch resources. You know, the things that you learn.
Okay. Yep.
From listening to your podcast, from reading a good book, things of that nature. And they're also the routines that you learn from now successful people that are part of your inside circle, your relationships, your peeps.
Yes.
So you're linking arms with, you know, the person that has the 7-figure business that you're aspiring to, that has 5 stores that you're aspiring to, you know, the entrepreneur, the business owner, or, you know, the person with the family that you would like to mirror. So you learn from him or her, like, on what to do. What do I need to do repeatedly to help me get to where you are? You see, success leaves clues.
Yeah.
And that's good news for everybody.
Yes. And I completely agree. I think it was such an obvious answer. I totally missed it. But it's so... For me, when I first started on my journey, I think I'm much more stronger now and resilient and have grown significantly on my journey. Even though I'm not where I would want to be, I'm so much better off because I took risks and I've experienced letdowns and failures. And I continue to keep going and to keep moving and to keep learning. And I remember we both know Dan Miller. Mm-hmm. In one of his books, he challenges people to take out a millionaire to lunch. And he gets a lot of questions about how people are supposed to even find where millionaires are. And I remember thinking, like, I don't think I can do it. And it's funny because now I have a lot of relationships with millionaires. And, like, those relationships have come very easily when I started stepping out and going after what it is that I want. It seems at first when I started, I'm thinking, I don't know any. And now it's like, I actually know quite a few and have some solid relationships where I'm learning from them and taking advice and picking up their clues that they're dropping about.
That's pretty much the formula that I gave you in action right there.
Yep. So what are some other ways? Like, I don't even know if I started off. I think it took me a minute to realize that millionaires are quite accessible. Mm-hmm. I used to think like they don't have time for me, but they're actually very willing to share their wisdom with others because, and I think I learned this from you, because they didn't get there on their own either.
You did, and I remember telling you the story when you were just launching your coaching business, or I was giving you some advice on something that you were wanting to get
launching.
over. Yeah.
Yep.
And I remember Joe Calloway has become a great friend and mentor to me. When I was getting ready to launch my Finding Your Voice book, which ended up becoming it hit a very soft spot with women readers in particular, and ended up becoming a #1 bestseller on Amazon. But when I was asking Joe about my launch plan and strategy, and I asked him, I said, how do I tactfully and diplomatically ask people, A-list type people, top performers, to help me market my book and to promote my book for me? And then I kind of thought about how silly and ridiculous that question even sounded coming out of my mouth. And then I paused, hesitated, and then I asked Joe, do I even need to be diplomatic and tactful? And he's like, no, you need to be clear what you want people to do for you. And then I, of course, pushed back like anybody would, right? That's brand new at this. And I said, well, why would anybody want to help me accomplish anything? Someone that they hardly knew, or that was at least not at the level of success where they were. Why would anybody want to help me with that? And then what Joe said is immediately etched into my brain, which is what I told you, and I've given the same advice to many people. And what Joe said is because they had to ask for help when they were just getting started, and that's how they know. And that's why they're going to be willing to pay it forward for you. And you know what, Stephanie? Everyone but one person was not able to help me. And other than that, everyone else was like, absolutely, Joel.
Yes. People are really generous, and I think that when you're first starting off, because there's a lot of chatter in your brain that happens, a lot of stories or objections that you have when you're given great advice, and then just like even you push back a little bit, and they're afraid of rejection.
Well, of course. I mean, we all are.
Right, and it's very uncomfortable, but in my experience, more people have helped me than not. I'd say like 80 to 90% of the time, people go out of their way and are extremely generous in how they help. And I enjoy it now, too, because now I have people reaching out to me, and I love to pour in. I remember what it was like.
Right.
And you helped me in the beginning, and I get to help other people. So I don't look at it as you're taking away my time and you're a nuisance, which I think in my head, I was thinking, like, I'm not going to interrupt them. They're too busy and have too many other important things to do other than to help me. But it actually is important for me. It's important for me to help other people and to continue pouring out to other people, because I love empowering other people to be successful. It makes the world a better place, in my opinion.
Well, in my own personal opinion, I think that's kind of why we're all here. Frankly, I think we'll kind of come in for a landing on this one. I love your show. Thank you for inviting me on. I personally think that God let me survive the accident and the recovery and the rehabilitation so I could make a difference, and so I could make a meaningful and significant contribution to myself, but for other people. And I firmly believe that. I mean, Stephanie, way back when, I had lost so much blood by the time the emergency team showed up. They weren't even able to start an IV on my little 5-year-old arm because all the blood vessels were gone. So was it a miracle? Absolutely. But I believe that there is a purpose to that miracle.
Yeah. Yes, and we all have a purpose. I believe firmly in that. We're not here just existing. But thank you, Joel, so much for the stories and for your inspiration. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm so glad that I can introduce you to the Move by Purpose audience. And I would love for them to know how they can connect with you and find more about your show and what you're up to.
Oh, thank you so much, Stephanie, for giving me the opportunity. I'll give you 2 URLs here, and they both work. RelaunchShow.com. Again, relaunchshow.com is where we park all of our shows. It's also where all of our training material is for a book launch campaign, also a podcast launch campaign, and many other things that we help people with. And also, if you're listening on your iPhone, about 70 to 80% of our listeners listen on their iPhone, probably a similar statistic for this show. Well, if you have an iPhone, just open up your Safari browser, and you can actually enter relaunchshow.com/reviews. Again, relaunchshow.com/reviews. And magically, the podcast app will open up on the iPhone, and boom, take you right to the Relaunch Show where you can subscribe, rate, and review the show. We do 3 shows a week, so you will get about an hour and a half worth of content per week that you can listen to on your commute and when you're working out and walking the dog.
Perfect. Make sure you check out Joel at the relaunchshow.com. Very inspiring show. I had an interview there. You can always check that one out. And thank you again, Joel. Honestly, it's always been a pleasure.
Pleasure's been mine. Bye-bye, Steph. Surrounding yourself with the right resources, with the right relationships, that can be in your church, in your community, that can be at your job, that can be within your family. You're going to have to use your own best judgment to figure out where those situations and opportunities are.